Electric vehicles will never catch on because I can pump my gas in 5 to 8 minutes, lickety split, no problem. Never mind the fact that I can't pump gas at home. Electric cars are, sadly, for these folks who believe that, they are the future, and the future is already here. It is happening. In many countries, much more aggressively than the US, and companies like BYD are rolling out faster and faster charging. Companies like Tesla and Electric Era and others are rolling out their charging network faster and faster. Those are some things we're going to talk about. When I say we, I mean I got Quincy, who a former SpaceX engineer, the CEO of Electric Era, a charging company, a public fast charging company that builds the equipment that customers then have installed at their site, and they do it smart. They do it with batteries in the cabinets, so you don't need huge connections to the grid. They've figured it out. And Quincy is not the only former SpaceX guy at the company. I've had a chance to talk with a couple of you guys. It's a lot of fun. Let's talk about these chargers. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. So, yeah, we've got some big announcements. This one, BYD has found a way to do megawatt charging on, it's not LFP batteries, it's LMFP batteries. So kind of LFP, doped a bit. It's fast, 10C charging on a car without frying it or burning down the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
So this is at the base level. Is this wizardry or just the next step in the science progress?
No, I think this is a very logical next step, and in fact, it was predictable and inevitable. One of the kind of things that I noticed when I first started Electric Era was that the growth rate in peak power charging capabilities of cars was increasing. I think like roughly 17% per year. I'd have to go look at my numbers, but call it 17% year over year. So every year, basically, cars could charge faster and faster and faster. So when I saw this announcement, I was like, "Oh, it's about time." We were waiting here. Now, I don't think it'll just continue forever because there's a bunch of practical reasons why that wouldn't make sense. But what this does represent is, in my opinion, kind of like the final asymptote of charging speed, because now it's as fast as a gas station. Like you just go, you plug in, you're done 5 minutes later, in the exact same way that you would with filling up an ICE car. So no, this is super cool, and I'm glad BYD keeps pushing the limits on the cell level technology and kind of the power electronics in order to make this stuff happen.
So one thing BYD has done to enable this, because you can't just pull 10 megawatts from the grid willy-nilly to charge up a bunch of cars that happen to roll in, is they've installed their batteries, their giant batteries. Say, that sounds familiar.
Sure
Uh,
does.
you guys have been doing that. Tell me why.
The fundamental reason is because it's really, really hard to secure power capacity for high power applications like EV fast charging from the grid. The grid is designed to support kind of static, continuous load. It's not designed to support high demand, very intermittent and dynamic charging power levels. So when you go to a utility and you say, "Hey, I want to install a megawatt of transformers," they'll roll their eyes and say, "Oh, well, that's going to take 2 to 3 years because we can't get the transformers, and we have to get a line crew out there to upgrade the wires and install everything." So if you go back to them and you say, "Okay, well, what about instead of a megawatt, I'll take 270 kilowatts?" They say, "Great, now that's something we can get you in 3 months." The gap between those two things is filled with a battery system. A battery system like those from Electric Era are able to provide kind of an intermediary buffer to meet the peak needs of the site from a power perspective without pulling more power from the grid. It instead charges up during periods of low use and then discharges during periods of high use. So this is what we specialize in at Electric Era, where we build dozens of battery-backed EV fast charging stations in dozens of states across the country. And it's to solve this exact fundamental problem, because you may be able to deliver the power into the car, but you can't unless you can get it from the grid. and the grid is the fundamental bottleneck for the entire 21st century economy.
Old locomotives in westerns, you remember the big water tower that they would have every 30 miles? That was to refill the water to produce the steam for the locomotive. You couldn't possibly pump that amount of water into a locomotive quickly enough to work, so they're pumping it 24 hours and dumping it in. Pretty
That's right.
comparable pretty comparable approach. So when it comes to the batteries themselves, BYD has an advantage. They make the batteries from they mine the lithium, refine the lithium, make this. I mean, they do the whole thing. But a lot of companies don't even make the modules, don't even make the battery packs. EV Go, no, Electrify America purchases stationary storage from Tesla. You guys make your own?
We make and assemble a custom sized energy storage system with the right amount of power conversion, safety electronics, and compute systems. And we pair that with the energy modules from a variety of third party suppliers. So we're not making our own battery cells per
No.
se. We make a whole pack that's custom fit for purpose and designed fit for purpose for EV fast charging stations. It is a huge endeavor to go all the way down to the cell
No.
manufacturing level. So
Yeah.
we don't want to do that as a company. And there's fortunately tons of battery manufacturing, both in America now, it
Mm.
turns out. And yeah, we can talk about that a little bit if you're curious. And in, of course, places like China, where you can secure battery cells and battery modules and battery packs.
Right. I had asked you maybe a year ago about domestic battery manufacturing, and your answer was, I can't talk yet. But we now know. So, of course, I went straight to the internet, found uh, what maybe you were talking about. But we've seen quite a bit of manufacturing come online, LG, of course, and others. What can you share about domestic battery manufacturing? And real quick, I did want to say, no one thinks you're making the cells. That's crazy. You don't,
Yeah,
I mean, that's $1 billion factory. Uh,
not
so,
yet.
not yet. What can you share about domestic cell production?
Well, so what I can share is there's some major large companies that have stood up large battery pack and module and cell fabrication facilities throughout Canada and the US. So think of big businesses like SK On, who is producing large amounts of LFP batteries and modules and packs for utility tied and utility scale energy storage systems. Those are now rolling out of their factory, and they're producing plan to produce many gigawatt hours of energy storage. Basically, there's an insatiable demand for batteries right now, just because of this fundamental kind of misalignment between what we can get statically from the grid and what dynamically we need at peak. It's called the peak to average ratio. So peak grid demand is somewhere around a terawatt, but the average is like 500 gigawatts, so half of it. So your average, which of course is the average by definition, is one half of the peak. So we build all the power lines for the peak, but we only use them at half capacity. Well, now with things like AI data centers and EV fast charging and heat pumps and all these other electrified technologies, we're demanding more and more at peak, but we don't have the ability to deploy more and more transmission lines and substations and distribution lines and fabricate transformers to meet that peak demand. So energy storage is, going back to kind of the concept of the buffer, is useful at the utility scale, the grid level, just as it is useful at the EV fast charging station level. So the result of that is like tons of businesses are standing up manufacturing capacity, of course, alongside Tesla, to meet that demand and help kind of power the electrified economy.
And when we look at all this new capacity that's arrived for stationary energy storage, how much of that is due to a pullback in EV manufacturing from the legacy automakers?
Yeah, I think it's hard to know, to be honest. I don't have a precise answer for you. I think some, to a degree, is being kind of
Yeah.
reassigned. Many business units, or many like automotive EV teams, are trying to figure out how to use extra cell capacity in energy storage systems for stationary applications. Um, to the degree and quantity, I can't say precisely, but that is somewhat happening. Although here we are filming this on, what is this, March 26, 2026. There's a kind of an oil crisis happening, of course, with the Iranian conflict, and that's translating into higher and higher gas prices. So already you can see EV used car prices starting to spike, which is like the leading indicator and of new EV purchasing. So I suspect this will translate into more EV adoption in a pretty meaningful way, depending on the severity and the duration of the conflict. And that I think is honestly for the best for consumers, because it'll alleviate a lot of the inflationary pressures around things like energy costs. Because while oil prices are spiking, our kind of generation facilities in the U.S. that produce electricity are still able to use relatively affordable inputs and produce electricity at a reasonable rate, making EV ownership still a great idea from a kind of a wallet perspective. Like, electricity is like super cheap. You can basically run your car if you charge it at home at a very affordable rate, and it's a great way to kind of get ahead of the affordability issues if those are top of mind for you.
If I was at 20% state of charge right now and I charge my car to 100, that would be roughly equivalent to 1 gallon of gas in terms of dollars.
Yeah,
So, maybe this time consumers will remember the pain of high gas prices, but I'm not convinced.
and don't forget as well, when you buy a gas car, you're basically buying a ticket to a maintenance event,
Mm,
because
mhm.
there's so many failure points inside of a gas powertrain. We have an employee that has like a coolant leak, and they were out of the office for like 3 days because they didn't have a car, and it was in the shop, and it cost them a ton of money. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I should have just bought an EV because it would have been way cheaper." Like, I've owned EVs for 4 years, and I have never had a maintenance event outside of changing windshield washer fluid and my tires. I've never had a radiator blow up. I've never had a caliper fail or spark plug issue, because none of those components exist. So you save yourself a ton of money on maintenance as well, in addition to energy.
I had water pumps go out, head gaskets, fuel injectors. I don't have any of those anymore. And I'll tell you, I asked around last week. I was at the Chattanooga Charge and I asked around because I had a specific question, which is, have you ever had to replace your brake pads? And I've talked to people with 300,000 miles on their cars who have not changed their brake pads, unless the exception being people who take their car out for track days. If you're going to use it as a race car, you're going to burn some brakes. And brakes are not super expensive, but it takes half a day and it's a pain. So why deal with that? Hey, did you see this video? Tesla Charging's got folding units. I'm going to turn off the sound there. They've got these units that kind of fold out. That's pretty clever. 33% more per truck. Um, what are we seeing in terms of innovation in charger manufacturing? Yours go up really quick.
Yeah, so this is a cool example of innovation in the kind of logistics and construction of a site. The chargers themselves are actually only maybe at most 66% of the cost of a charging station, and the rest is EPC and construction and permitting and utility coordination and utility interconnection in the transformer. So Tesla now with this is focusing on the station level engineering, not just
Mm.
the charger hardware, power cabinets, etc. So yeah, this is cool and novel, and kind of reminds me of what we did at SpaceX back in the day with the Gateway ground stations, where we wanted to deploy them fast, and we didn't want to install like large concrete rebar pillars in the ground and do a construction project every time. So we just put them on a precast concrete structure and put the antenna on top of that, and then threw it out in the field and plugged it in, saving so much time and money. So this is kind of a traditional approach to solving these problems. So it's cool to see Tesla, using that for their own product.
And I recall you had a pretty fast install recently.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we aim for speed. We're, I think, averaging about 8 months now, and we see a path to 6 on average. Our fastest is 56 days that we did for a retailer down in the Southeast, Costco.
And that's not the 56 days to build. That's 56 days start to finish.
Yeah, like we got a PO, and then 56 days later, somebody was charging a car.
That's so cool. And that's the one by me, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there are stuff by you in Portland, but That one I think was quite fast. It wasn't quite that fast, but maybe the one near you was like 90 days, maybe. It's been a couple years since we did that one, so I can't say exactly.
But that was also when there was no rush because the site wasn't, I mean, Costco was brand new at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great. Anything you want to share about the miracles of electrons? By the way, I did want to say there are still people who are thinking that battery swaps are going to catch on in the US. I don't think that's going to work here. It's so much easier to move electrons than it is to move atoms. And if you have
Well said.
access to home charging, I don't think that is megawatt charging important if you have home charging?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like fast charging access is key because of all of the multifaceted use cases drivers have. They're not just stuck at their homes; they go on road trips, and so you need a way to charge them up on road trips. They go grocery shopping, and they might want to kind of conveniently charge up while they grocery shop because it's maybe they forgot to plug in. I actually forget to plug in my cell phone all the time, so like
Mhm.
I know people are doing that with their cars, and those types of edge cases make the fabric of fast charging infrastructure across the country really important. It's not going to do all charging. It's probably going to do about 30 to 40%, and the remainder will be done at home. That's what the data shows, and actually, that's what Tesla's data shows. I think that like 27% of all of their electricity dispensed into their fleet is from fast charging locations last I saw. And megawatt level charging is just that on steroids. It's going to be more fast, more convenient, and I think it will alleviate the need to have like robust level 2 charging infrastructure across the country for homes because now you can just do it really conveniently in a public location. So I'm excited about it. I mean, it's not the U.S. market isn't ready for it. This specifically works for BYD cars who have the right chemistry and the right powertrain voltage. You cannot do this on a Tesla. You will cause a huge fire, so don't try. It will literally
Fortunately,
blow up.
your car won't let you set
Yeah,
it on fire in that manner. If you found a way to make it do it, please don't. That's hilarious, but yeah, let's not set the world on fire just yet.
that's something we'll when you come up to the factory, we'll show you is like that low level communication between the car and the charger is like an authenticated two-way handshake, and the car really won't let you do anything unsafe because there's like tons of lockouts effectively
Hmm.
and a fairly complex and circuitous state machine that you have to navigate to actually start enabling electricity to flow between the charger into the car safely. So Electric Era is now doing that low level comms control at the 15.11.8 layer, and we've made our own custom PCBAs to actually facilitate and handle all that power, which is super cool. And we'll show you when you're up here next.
That's going to be fun. So, guys, these are smart people working on tough challenges, and unlike Tesla, Electric Era has to deal with every car. Tesla has rolled out access to many of the cars, not quite all of them, and not at all locations where these guys have to handle everything all the time. So it's a different level of challenge. So, guys, any comments you want to leave, please leave them. What do we miss? What do we misunderstand? Let us know. Everybody else, like, subscribe, do what you do, and stay tuned, stay juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots. Perhaps after I go and visit Electric Era in person once again.